All right. I think we're in focus. This looks in focus enough, right? Should be fine. Should be fine. You're listening to me more than you're looking at me. Hello, everyone. It's been a long time since I've made something like this. It's been 3 years since the This Is True album came out. Yeah, and so I'm excited to be releasing music again and putting out content about that music and just helping everyone to engage with what I'm putting out and engage with my art. And so I'm extremely grateful for those of you who have been around since This Is True came out and have stuck around. Because frankly, the last 2 to 3 years have been a lot for me. And a lot of people have chosen to leave my life and kind of abandon me as a person and abandon my art. So for those of you who are here, who have listened to the new song, who have listened to Satan's Savior and have enjoyed it, have shared it, and are curious about it, I'm extremely grateful. So thank you so much for supporting what I'm doing and believing in what I'm doing. But I've gotten a lot of questions about the new song, and so I wanted to make a video to kind of lay out, what is this thing all about? What is this song? What does it mean? Where was I at when I wrote it? And so let's dive right in. If you're unfamiliar with me, if you're unfamiliar with my work, I was a pastor in the Christian tradition for over a decade. Grew up in that tradition, spent my whole life being a part of that. But started to feel as if I was outgrowing a lot of those things. Started to feel like I was outgrowing that belief system and outgrowing that that modality of spirituality. And that resulted in me being fired from a church that I was working at. That was my main source of income for my family. It was a tremendously difficult and painful thing to go through. Because what people don't a lot of times realize is when you work at a church, that community is everything. All of those people those are your coworkers, those are your best friends, those are your people that you run with, people that you love, people that you are in close relationship with. And when someone gets very unceremoniously and very suddenly, and in my humble opinion, very wrongfully, let go like that, that community is severed. So in a lot of ways, it's unlike being let go from other jobs, where it's just, okay, now I got to find a new job, but I've still got my, my friend group, I've still got my community, I've still got my support system. We didn't have that, so we were suddenly without work, and suddenly without a lot of our friends and a lot of our support system and a lot of the things that we really held important. And again, I apologize if my focus keeps fading in and out. I don't remember how to do videos. So I was let go, and the good out of that, the benefit that came from that, is that suddenly my spirituality, the things that I believed and things that I practiced, were no longer tied to a specific tradition. So I was able to become a little bit more expansive. I was able to actually let myself start to let go of things that weren't serving me, and was allowed to let myself start to look at other things that may be more spiritually and mentally advantageous and healthy for me. So it's been a year of, or a couple years of intense therapy and hard work, and the hot button word is deconstruction, but there's also been a tremendous amount of reconstruction on the other end. So this whole project, this whole thing that I'm putting out, is to walk through the emotional landscape that I was going through with that. And so we've started with this song because it was kind of the opening of the experience. It was when I realized suddenly that I don't need a specific religious tradition to be a happy, healthy, spiritual person. In fact, the spiritual tradition that I was clinging to was harming me in a lot of ways. And so I started to realize that this thing that I had been taught, that the heart is deceitful above all else, that I am a fallen and broken and bad person, that just wasn't true. That just didn't hold any water for me, or it didn't hold any power over me anymore. And so I started to realize that actually the arbiter of what is good and healthy for me mentally, spiritually, physically, all of those things is me. It is myself. I have that power to do with what I will. And so as I started to write about that, I realized that the literary figure of Satan was a really great metaphor for what I was going through. And that led to the title of the song, Satan Savior. This idea that Satan, as this archetype, as this not literal being, but metaphorical, mythic being that represents the pursuit of truth, represents the truth of rebellion, and represents the spirit of all of these things, was a metaphor for me realizing that I could trust in myself. And that mythic idea of that Satan saved me from a lot of these very unhealthy thought patterns and tendencies that I was carrying around, which is where the title of the song comes from. So a lot of folks have asked about that, and there you go, there it is. I don't believe in a literal Satan. I don't think that Satan is real. I'm not sure if my audio is picking up. I don't believe in Satan. I don't think that Satan is a real existent thing in the world. But I do believe that there's power in that symbol and in that myth and in that archetype. And I think that one of the things that thing has a lot of power to do is to rescue folks out of difficult religious situations like I found myself in. So that leads to the rest of the lyrics. Lyrically, I really wanted this to be reflective of this really beautiful, wonderful book that I read called The Revolt of the Angels by Anatole France. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce his last name. He's a French author. But he wrote this book called Revolt of the Angels, which is all about a group of angels deciding that they're done with the Judeo-Christian God, who they call Yaldabaoth, which is a wonderful, wonderful Gnostic reference there. It's them realizing that they are going to start a second rebellion. They're going to start a second war in heaven. But there's this middle section in the book where one of the demons or angels, whichever you want to go with, is describing Lucifer and Lucifer's arrival on the earth. And it's full of this lush and beautiful language, and it frames Lucifer not as this horrible, evil creature who's out for the death and destruction of humanity, but is this actually really loving creature, bring wisdom and betterment to humanity, even though God Yaldabaoth doesn't want that. But I was really captured by this characterization of Satan as this very warm and gentle, but also a force that's pushing people forward. So that's where I took a lot of the inspiration from. I think you can see that reflected in a lot of the lyrics. Just this loving but also challenging figure of Satan. The bridge captures a lot of that deconstruction of original sin. The let me take away the shame of being human. I felt like for a long time I was taught and told and taught other people and told other people that by their nature of being human, they were fallen and broken. And I think when that goes out the window, everything becomes so much more helpful and more advantageous to us as people. So that's where a lot of those lines came from. There are a lot of there's really two interesting ways that you can read a lot of these lyrics. There's some sexual undertones in them. You can certainly read into things that way if one were so inclined to do so. The third verse, Lucifer asked me to lay on my back and cradled my head. He told me that I wasn't wretched inside but took me to bed. You could take that sexually, and yeah, it's somewhat intentional that I wanted there to be some sexual undercurrents in there, but there's also, you could take it as this is someone who loves somebody and is just comforting them and caring for them. Carry my little girl to bed when she's hurt or sick or sad. And that was kind of some of the imagery that I was trying to conjure up in a lot of that. And I know I'm fully aware that this is a controversial song title and controversial content, especially for a former pastor who the majority of at least my former audience is people who are still in that tradition. And so there was a fear that a lot of this was going to be overly offensive and too offensive, and that it would be read as me being provocative and offensive simply for the sake of being provocative and offensive. And while I do enjoy being provocative, I have no problem with that. And I also have no problem with being provocative for the sake of being provocative. That is not at all what I was doing. I was trying to create something that was very honest. And sort of that iconoclastic, blasphemous language is somewhat healing, and I felt was the best metaphor to explain where I've been and where I'm going. So I hope that at least somewhat explains where I was at and some of the lyrical choices that I made, some of the metaphorical choices, some of the imagery that I chose to use. But as always, I've said this in a bunch of my other videos, it doesn't matter what I think the song is about. It doesn't matter what I say it is. It is up to you to interpret and wrestle with the lyrics and come up with whatever meaning you want it to mean. And if the song holds a special place for you because of a completely different reason than everything I just said, that is wonderful and great and good. I'm always hesitant to explain what a song means because I don't want people to say, well, our artist said it means this, so it has to mean this. It can mean whatever the fuck you want it to mean. It is out there for you to engage with and interpret as you will. So let's move on to the actual writing process and the recording process and all of that. I actually can't remember when I first wrote. Sat down at my little upright piano upstairs. It's very out of tune, and started just playing this little thing. I think the chorus came first. The love song to the devil. I think that came first, and then everything else sort of built around that. So yeah, I definitely wanted it to be very piano driven, very keys focused. But I also have been very inspired musically by a lot of different artists, one of which that definitely had a big impact on this track was Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, which I know is kind of surprising given the very different styles of me and Nine Inch Nails. But I heard an interview with him where he talked about anytime he had like a weird electronic instrument, he wanted to pair it with an acoustic sounding instrument. So I kind of reversed that, and I had this acoustic piano sound, and I wanted to blend it with some more electronic elements. So that's where you get a lot of the drums, you get a lot of the big grindy synthy parts in there. Was trying to sort of pair the natural with the unnatural. So I did a lot of that. I've also been very inspired by artists like Aurora and the way that she uses her as an instrument and builds a lot of harmonies and chord progressions around her voice. So that's where the idea to do a lot of the underlying chords vocally came from. I've also been really inspired by Jack Garrett and a lot of his rhythm sections and things that he does, so that's in there. And then Low Roar is a gentleman from Iceland who unfortunately passed away recently, but his music has been huge for me as far as inspiration goes. So as always, I wrote it. I recorded it on my cell phone. We'll put that right here.
Angel of light took a thorn from my side and gave it a name.
And then after I recorded it on the cell phone, I come down here into the studio and I pluck away at it and I pick away at it and I refine the lyrics and refine all the different bits and pieces and record it on the Nord Stage 3. It's still here. I'm still writing most of my music on it. It's the best instrument ever. Yeah, and that's really mostly all there is to it. The lyric video was, again, as you can probably tell from this video and the lyric video, have been out of practice with video work, so I wanted to be really simple with it. So it's really just me filming my bookshelf, and that is a small section of my bookshelf, but I really wanted to focus on some of the religious icons that I have on my bookshelf and a lot of the spiritual Christian texts that I have on my bookshelf. And the reason I wanted to do that is because there's certainly a opinion of people who've deconstructed that we do enough work We just didn't try to learn the truth. We just didn't try hard enough to see the right way of being. So that was kind of me just being like, I have read and studied all of these books, and this is only one section, and I still ended up where I ended up. So it was sort of a subtle defeating of that argument there really quick. So that's it. I think that's all that I have to say about it. I'm, again, super grateful that people have engaged with it and listened to it and enjoyed it. I've gotten great feedback on it. I've gotten very little negative feedback, which is great because I was anticipating a good bit of it. So thank you all so much for participating and listening. This is the first track on a long album that details my entire deconstruction and reconstruction. So the next song comes out January 1st. Things are going to get a little bit darker thematically, and then they will start getting lighter thematically. So don't you worry about that. I look forward to putting that out for you. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And I hope that you enjoy the next one as much as you enjoyed this one, or more. Hopefully more.